Arizona, northern Arizona. I've been here for 13 days, I think, almost 2 weeks. In volume 1 of my road trip recap, we left off in West Texas. I was heading up to the Guadalupe Mountains, the tallest peaks in Texas. So I went there, spent a night, hiked around a little bit, met some interesting people in the campground. It's right about sunset, and there's the bugs out here in the desert. Right around, if you can't hear, these honeybees are going crazy. I'm really curious where their hive is out here in the desert. They are so active this morning. It was right about sunset. I had been kind of walking around on some of the trails near the campground there, and I see this guy sitting at this table. He has a little bit of an iPad set up and some strange looking tools that he's playing with his hands. And there's this giant green antenna that is attached to a line probably 40 feet into the ground. And he tells me that it is called ham radio. It's his hobby in the backcountry, and he'll set up at campsites, and he's communicating with Morse code with other people online, I guess, that have these tools, and it's basically just a game to see where in the world can we make connections, and it creates this map, right? And so he was telling me that he has this bigger setup at his camp. Him and his wife were going to summit one of the peaks there. I think it was Hunter's Peak. They said it was their favorite hike. And he was bringing a tiny, tiny, tiny little setup to do the same sort of Morse code communication on the peak of the mountain. While him and I were sitting there chatting, he was telling me about the Morse code, ham radio, and all that. A bird flew up and landed on top of his antenna, and it collapsed instantly like this. So while he's nerding out on that, only 2 days later, I find myself in Flagstaff at the Overland Expo. I made a video all about that. And that is the greatest collection of truck nerds in the history of the world. Also at Guadalupe, I met another older woman that was from Florida, and she was traveling in her little Subaru Outback, and she had her bicycle, traveling solo, and she said that every summer she takes a long road trip, 3 or 4 months, across the U.S. to different places, usually the West, but sometimes she'll go north up into Canada. And she's been doing this for 6 years in a row. So taking 3 to 4 months every summer to do a big road trip. That's kind of her retirement travel plans, doing this long solo cruising. So I thought that was awesome. You know, it's entirely possible for so many people to get out and do something like this.
It's entirely possible.
I headed west from the Guadalupes to Tucson and Saguaro. I'd never seen those cacti before. I really wanted to do that. Found a great little campsite and was just amazed by, some of these cacti are taller than basketball goals, 10, 12, 13, maybe 14 feet tall. Really, really tall. And very picturesque. I mean, looking like kind of your cartoon cacti, right? I didn't spend much time in southern Arizona because it was too hot, man. I'm really active. I love to ride my bike. I love to get out and hike around and whatnot. I lasted about 25 minutes on a bike before I was too burnt out, literally. I had headed north past Tucson and saw these cool short little peaks just off the road there. It was a state park, an Arizona state park, got on the bike, did about half an hour, but the Arizona heat, I wasn't used to it then, and in the south, it's so much different than in the north because it's a dry heat, and if you're breathing really heavily, your throat and your lungs will dry out. Uh, and you don't really sweat either because your sweat evaporates instantly, so you can't really stay cool. A lot of people don't like the humidity in Tennessee and the East Coast and in the South in the summer, but it is nice to get a good sweat when it's really hot because you can stay cool. Whereas in southern Arizona, you're just baking in the oven. And it was only 95 degrees. And I say only because I was talking to a ranger at the state park and he said, "Oh yeah, man, this is cool for us. It's only May. 95 is nothing. Like we're going to get up to 115, 120 for most of the summer." That place is uninhabitable, man. Like I don't know how people do it. I met this older woman. I had to get my tire patched. I had a screw in my tire. I was at the tire shop getting it patched up. I met this older woman who said she had been living in Tucson since 1973. And she said that there used to be dirt roads that run through the town. After I asked her, how have you seen this place change? That's a long time to be in one city. So dirt roads in the heart of Tucson. That's southern Arizona. Probably too hot back then to uh, lay some asphalt. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. So then I make it to Flagstaff, northern Arizona. Get up there on Sunday for the last day of the Overland Expo West. I shot so much footage, y'all, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I had no plan on what was I going to do with all this. I had met some people, interviewed a couple people, but I was struggling to kind of piece it all together. And so I sat on that footage for a few days, and I was just thinking and thinking and thinking, what is an interesting story to tell with Overland Expo? Because I'm mostly an outsider when it comes to that industry. Obviously, I have a Tacoma, so that gets me a little bit in the door. So how I was able to piece it all together is I just speak from experience and how I got into road tripping and using a pickup truck to camp in the backcountry and my experience with backpacking, and I tied it all together uh, in the only way I knew how, which was to speak from experience. And a lot of my packing philosophy comes from backpacking. So I talked about Grandma Gatewood, the OG ultralight queen, uh, and yeah, it's a silly, fun video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. You don't really have to know anything about road tripping or overlanding or backpacking for that one to be somewhat entertaining. I can be a little bit funny sometimes, I think.
Wrong.
I spent a lot of time in Flagstaff. I love this town. I've camped around Flagstaff for, I think, like 7 or 8 nights. I spent a whole day on the bike cruising throughout the whole town. I was walking past this brewery called Dark Sky, and I see this amazing old 1959, I think he said, box truck. Had the original turquoise paint on it, and they had painted the box back half of the truck to kind of match it a little bit. And they slapped a projector on the side, and it's just a fun thing that kind of catches your eye when you're walking past the brewery there. I made a lot of friends in Flagstaff. Um, I don't know, maybe it's like-minded people. You know, all we want to do is get out and camp every night and hop on the bike or hit a trail. So I camped near the Sunset Crater volcano for a couple nights. Um, and a lot of that volcanic rock is used in some of the buildings in Flagstaff, primarily these churches. And I had a guy tell me about how the concrete and the volcanic rock doesn't mix too well based on some sort of mineral compounds or something. And so some of these facades are like eroding on these buildings, but they look really, really cool. Volcanic rock mixed in with this kind of pink exterior. There's volcanic rock built into this church behind me, and there's also this pink color that you see sprinkled throughout the Southwest on a lot of buildings. I was told that when this volcanic rock was used to build this church, they didn't realize that there's some sort of element or compound in the volcanic rock that doesn't mix too kindly with concrete, and so that's why you get some parts of this that are, it's kind of falling apart and decaying and very costly to fix. One of the guys I met at Overland Expo, his name is Brad, and he has a Toyota Sunraider. I messaged him just asking if he was still hanging around. This was a few days after the expo. And he said, yeah, man, I'm camping up here at the edge of the world. Come on up. And he sent me his coordinates. So 25 miles about, I think, through the backcountry. I was proud of the truck. I took a route that was probably not the smartest route. It was a little gnarly. If I had just hit 231, it would have been a lot smoother. That was fun, though, to take the truck on the road and see what it can do. I spent 2 nights up there, about 2.5 days. We were camping right on the rim of this canyon that overlooks Sedona. We were a little bit further out from Oak Creek, but I mean, just stunning views 24/7. Great sunrise, great sunsets. There was a cliff kind of overlook section that we could hike out to, not far from camp. We had a dark orange moonrise, which was incredible. I've only seen a few of those before. And actually, funny enough, here last night, I had one as well. It woke me up. I went to bed 8:30, right as it gets dark here in Arizona. And I didn't realize that my back window of the truck there was going to be facing perfectly with this rising moon. And the light from the orange rising moon woke me up here last night. Yeah, so we're camping up there. I did a video with Brad. We spent 3 days together. A lot of time hanging out, talking, and we did all that before I shot the kind of walk and talk with him. So at that point, I already got to know him, and he's lived such a fascinating life. He's worked so many different types of jobs in so many different industries. He was a pastor for 16 years. He was kind of blindsided in a divorce in 2014, and then in 2020 decided he wanted to live out of his truck full-time after some health problems. And yes, he's been doing it for 4 years. He fully built out that truck all by himself, learned all the skills how to do it. He has a funny story about prior to building the truck out, years before that, he bought a boat and rebuilt out the whole thing, and then through a series of complications, had to end up getting rid of the boat and never put it on the water. It made me think about how sometimes you'll put so much energy into one thing and then it doesn't work out, but that one thing was actually preparing you for the next thing that was going to work. So Brad builds out this boat, never gets to put it in the water. It's a failure, right? But then he has a lot more experience to build out this truck and build out his now home years later. So it kind of prepared him for that future obstacle, you know. So while we're sitting there at the campsite one day, we had some neighbors roll up, and Kyle is a photographer based out of Phoenix, works with a bunch of different brands, has a ton of production experience. He was the coolest guy, you know, shared some beers with us. Really kind of like-minded guy. I had a lot of fun hanging out with him and his friend Kelly. Kelly has a Tacoma as well. Spends half her year kind of living out of her truck with her dog and road tripping around. She's a photographer too. I ended up spending some time with Kelly, bouncing around Flagstaff, got some pizza. I have a lot of footage, a lot of B-roll of Flagstaff, so I'll throw some of that in here, and maybe I'll put together a kind of a Flagstaff video. I need to do that with Marfa as well. I shot a lot of footage in Marfa and in Flagstaff, and only a couple clips are going to make it into these videos here. So from Flagstaff, after camping up at the edge of the world, going back to Flagstaff, in and out of Flagstaff, I went back south through Oak Creek Canyon and Sedona again. And this canyon, you're going from probably 8,000 feet up at Flagstaff, way down 2,000 or 3,000 feet into this canyon. Super narrow. There's a creek running through it. It's now extremely popular and kind of swamped with people, but going through in the evening or early in the morning like I did, kind of on the way up and the way back a few days later, that's a good time to go. Zero traffic, and the lighting is really nice at that time. And went through Sedona to go all the way up past Cottonwood and Jerome to meet the Hart family. The Hart family is a family of 6 from Missouri that lives out of one of these giant cross-continental rigs. They're plugged into the overland community. I met them through Brad because they happened to be leaving that campsite up at the edge of the world the day that I showed up. So we kind of reconnected 4 or 5 days later, and they said, hey, yeah, come meet us up at this campsite we have, which was up past Jerome. I was able to meet the family, shot a video with them. That was really fun. I'm sure we'll cross paths again, no doubt. They were kind enough to send me some coordinates of a couple campsites, one of them being this place here, outside of Cottonwood. So after hanging out with the Hart family, they took off to go to Prescott, not Prescott, I've been told by a couple dudes on motorcycles that are from there. They said it's Prescott, like biscuit. So now I'm hungry. The Hart family headed off to Prescott. So I camped out up past Jerome, spent a whole day after meeting the Hart family, spent a whole day just still. I edited some video. I needed a day of no movement. So then yesterday, of course, my relentless need to move got a hold of me again, and I went and explored all around Jerome. Jerome is a former copper mining town that is pretty much the true definition of the Wild Wild West. And I'm going to read you a section from a plaque that was posted on the wall in town. The first mining claims were filed in 1876. Within 20 years, Jerome was a billion-dollar copper mecca and one of the wildest, wickedest mining towns in the West. Drinking, gambling, brawls, and frolicking with the ladies of the night occurred around the clock in 24 magnificent saloons. By the time mining shut down in 1952, enough copper had been produced to put 13 pounds in the hands of every citizen in the world. Gold and silver production covered mining expenses. Through the efforts of the Historical Society, Jerome became one of the West's most celebrated ghost towns. Although this image persisted into the 1970s, Jerome's population grew in the 60s. Buildings began to be restored to their graceful pre-1953 conditions, and in 1967, Jerome was designated a National Historical Landmark. Today, Jerome is an arts-oriented village of 500. This was in 1995, so probably a lot more than that now. 1 million tourists a year stroll through its twisted streets and gape at the 100-mile views. With its rich history and tenacious citizens, Jerome is a town too strong to die. Yeah, Jerome is built into this hillside, extremely hilly, winding streets. I get in there super early in the morning. I'm one of the first people to park on the road. I'm checking out this badass little single cab, first gen Tacoma. I'm hoping I can find the owner of it. And then slowly throughout that morning, tons and tons of people start strolling into town. Park, 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 park. Next thing you know, everyone's cruising the streets, going to the shops, getting food at the restaurants, checking into their hotels. Goodness, this honeybee just loves these little pink flowers. So I put a note on this guy's Tacoma saying, hey, I want to do a quick video with you. I need to check out this truck. It looks super cool. Text me. And I don't get anything, but 30 minutes later, I'm getting some mint chocolate chip ice cream for breakfast. Gelato, of course, for breakfast, of course. And this guy walks in with his girlfriend, and I'm chatting it up with him. And then I said, hey, you didn't happen to have that truck over there, did you? He said, was that you with the note? So yeah, I bumped into the guy. I don't know if he would have even messaged me, but he was really cool. He's an ultra marathon runner. Had some pretty wild stories about some of his long races he's done. And yeah, showed me his truck. That was a great way to start the day. So spent a few hours kind of cruising around Jerome. Shot some footage of some of the interesting decayed buildings that are kind of hollowed out now and have not been restored almost intentionally, I guess. They're more like public sculpture art displays. You can throw some coins and pennies into some toilets down the commode. From there, I needed to go to the gym, so I went to Cottonwood, which is a town just down the mountain there from Jerome in the Verde Valley. And in the Verde Valley is where I found this little gym, and one of the trainers there was so nice to let me work out for free. And that's the power of asking. I forgot to mention that when I was in Flagstaff, I got a hotel for 2 nights. So I camped out for, 6-7 nights around Flagstaff, northern Arizona. But for 2 nights I got a hotel so I could clean up, edit some video. And the power of asking, my friends. I've now stayed in 2 hotels on this trip, one in Austin, one in Flagstaff, and both times I've received 10% off and free parking. Why? Because I just asked for it. This is something I started, I don't know, a few months back, 6 months ago maybe. I just asked for 10% off at hotels, and almost every time it works. There have been a few times where it hasn't, and I've been laughed at, particularly by this girl named Malaysia at this hotel in Asheville. She was like, what? But other than that, it's worked almost every time. And yeah, so same thing happened at the gym in Cottonwood. I just asked. She let me work out for free. Unfortunately, they didn't have showers there, so I went to the rec center after getting some lunch. I went to the rec center in Cottonwood and bought a day pass there. Was able to work out a little bit more and take a shower. So all of these things, if you're wondering how to stay clean on the road, it's all very accessible. Go to gyms, go to rec centers. I work at libraries. I work at coffee shops. I work on the bed of the truck my little home office here. I don't need internet to edit video, so that's nice. I just need to post, of course. Gosh, I feel like I'm missing some stories. I've met so many cool people. Well, hopefully this B-roll was sick. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention the amazing sunsets and sunrises here and everywhere out west. It's funny on the East Coast, I think you have to work for a good sunset sometimes. Of course, if you're out in the countryside and you're near some farmland, there's a little less tree cover, and with the amazing clouds we have out on the East Coast, obviously makes for some great sunsets, especially in the valley where Knoxville's situated. We get that a lot. But I do feel like you got to get out of the city to get a good sunset, right? We're out here in the West, there's so less tree cover, so there's views in every single direction. And so almost every single night I get a killer sunset, and every morning I get woken up with a beautiful sunrise. That is the beauty of a US West road trip. It's unbelievable. And one of my favorite things about traveling this way is going to bed with the sun, waking up with the sun, and it's just something that's a little harder to come by in the cities or on the East Coast if you're tucked amongst the tree cover there. In the backcountry, if you're hiking out in the Smokies and the Appalachians, you got to really put in the effort to find a good view. Whereas here in the West, it's pretty much everywhere you drive is gorgeous, and long distance views. So, not hating on the East Coast, just different, that's all. Just different. I'm standing on the tailgate, if that's not obvious. Consider jumping on top of the truck here. Not a bad place to sit. But the problem is that it's hard to get back down. I gotta precariously jump back down to the tailgate. Not as easy as it looks. Not a good idea to break a leg in the backcountry. And I love it out here. Northern Arizona specifically. Going from the heat of southern Arizona to the cool temps here in northern Arizona. In the daytime it gets a little warm, but at night it's nice and chilly. Get some great sleep, wake up, bundle up, and then within an hour or two, once the sun starts hitting you, all those layers come off and it's warm again. That's what's interesting about northern Arizona. Some people might not know that, but because you're at high elevation, Flagstaff is 7,000 feet, for example. They get all 4 seasons, and I was told that Flagstaff actually had the most snowfall out of any U.S. city last year. So, go to Arizona, get buried in snow. Go to northern Arizona and have some fun summer activities. Go swimming in some of the creeks. Go hiking around through the pines. And go skiing in the winter, or even in the fall, or probably in the spring, because there's snow up on those San Francisco peaks, the tallest peaks in Arizona, mostly year-round, I think. After Prescott, plans for the next few days look like a story that I have booked up for northwest of Flagstaff, near the Grand Canyon. I met a guy that lives off-grid, way out in the desert, and he has some pretty crazy stories about lasers blasting his truck, and he has like these scars on his shoulder. And he doesn't know if it's from aliens or drones or sun rays or what, but we're gonna go find out. And then I'm gonna go to the Grand Canyon. I still haven't been there. I've been so close to the canyon, and I never have gone north of Flagstaff hardly. So I've been kind of bouncing around this region outside of Flagstaff, south of Flagstaff, through Sedona and Cottonwood and Jerome, and now I'm going west to Prescott. and then I'm going to loop back up to the big old GC. Probably the North Rim. We'll see. I'm not really sure. And then I'm super excited to meet my friend Eric. He lives out in San Diego, and we're going to cruise up 395, which is the highway that runs east of the Sierras, and we're going to do a backpacking trip. And that is in a week or so. So that will be beautiful and fun, and I miss him. All right, that is volume 2 of my road trip recap. Volume 3 to come out potentially in another week or two. I don't really know where I'm heading here from just yet, but I am going to go get some biscuits in Prescott. Subscribe to Logan Let's Go. It helps me out. And stay tuned for all these stories that I've been filming. I am sitting on probably 7 or 8 stories filmed that I haven't edited yet or currently working on. Maybe even 10. Gosh, I have so many. You know, that's funny. That is a problem I thought I would have when heading out on this trip, knowing that I wasn't going to be booking out a lot of stories to shoot, just trusting my curiosity to kind of bring me to them or people to kind of walk into my life. And that's happened far more than I would have thought. My biggest worry leaving was, will I find enough stories? And now I have the opposite problem where I have too many stories that I need to be editing, and I have this problem of needing to continue to explore and go. And it's been tough to find the time to just sit, be still, edit, because I want to just go film more. I want to go find more stories. I mean, gosh, I'm shooting a story almost every day, feels like, and it takes a lot of time to sit down and edit them. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to take it slow in Prescott, and we're going to work on some videos. So, bye.